When Trump named you as his running mate, we revisited some of your bio. And one of the points I made that day was this is a man whose life has been formed by strong women. That's very clear. That's a fact. It's
Right.
not spin. From Mama, your grandma, to your mom, though it was a complicated relationship and remains so, I'm sure, to your sister Lindsay, with whom you're very close, to Aunt Wee. And then you move on to Yale Law School, and there's Amy Chua, our mutual friend who we love,
Right.
who encouraged you to write the book and changed your life and saw in you this special story in person that ultimately would lead you to enter the national conversation. And then Usha, who you met at Yale Law School, who I know has been responsible in large part for teaching you how to love, how to be in relationship, how to conquer some of those childhood demons. So to me, it's a great success story of not just JD Vance, but of American women, strong American women, from Mama with her guns and her love of the F-bomb to your own mom with her addiction problems, though she managed to make her imprint, to the beautiful Lindsay, the sisterly love who beat herself up for not protecting you more, ultimately to this more sophisticated, incredible, dynamic wife, Usha, who's taking you on the next leg of the journey. So how do you see those women and like your arc with them, JD?
Well, I think it is the through line of my life, Megyn, that there have been strong women who have made it possible for me to have a good life. And you mentioned Mamaw. I've heard so many Mamaw stories from friends and family just in the last few days. People who have come out of the woodwork, obviously, because we gave this speech at the RNC convention. And one story I heard, Megyn, just a couple of days ago from my aunt is, we were in a car and I was so young, I just forgotten this story. And we were driving to Eastern Kentucky. And a motorcyclist pulls up and he's kind of swerving and he's being aggressive and he's just being really ridiculous and kind of scaring us in the car. And I pointed it out, and my aunt points it out, she's driving, and Mamaw reaches underneath her seat, pulls out a .44 Magnum and taps it on the window. And this guy sort of almost swerves and crashes his motorcycle. Well, that was the end of the motorcycle harassment. And that's just the type of person Mamaw was, right? She was just this incredibly strong person. And yeah, Usha's more sophisticated in the ways of the world, but I think what sort of unites them is, one, they're very tough. Two, they're incredibly protective of their family. Three, they're very smart, right? Mamaw wasn't well educated, but she was a very brilliant person. And the only downside I'll say of Usha is I asked the convention planners, I said, what about having my wife introduce me before my speech? I'm not making that mistake ever again, Megyn, because she did such a good job and I was so proud of her, but I'm not going to have to follow that act ever again, right? I'm going to make
totally
Usha
charming.
introduce President Trump, but she really was. And
part of her nature, like the way she projects, this self-deprecating nature, is what makes her so attractive and charming. Yeah,
and she's just herself. And what I was worried about, having never been in the spotlight, is I just want you, honey, to be, as I said this to Usha, I just want you to be who you are, because I love you. The world's going to fall in love with you. And she just went out there. She didn't accept the speechwriter's speech. She wrote her own speech, said exactly what she wanted to say, and she did such a good job with it. And I just, as a guy who's very in love with his wife, I was very, very proud of her, but not following that speech again, Megyn.
So how did you feel when you got the call from Trump? You and I talked when you weren't even in politics.
Yeah.
You had just returned to Ohio from San Francisco. You were telling me you just couldn't take like the people openly defecating on the sidewalks. It was a lot from this kid, from Midwest. You weren't even in politics, and now flash forward 8 years later, you get the call from President Trump asking you to be his running mate. How did he put it to you? How did he ask you, and how did it feel?
Well, the funny thing, Megyn, is we're in the hotel room in Milwaukee. We had just arrived. He apparently called, and I didn't see the call. I guess it went straight to voicemail or something. So I call him back, and he answers the phone. He says, JD, you missed a very important phone call. Maybe I'll have to give this to somebody else. So my heart kind of stops, right? And I tense up really, really powerfully. But the funniest thing, Megyn, is because we're in the hotel room with my 7-year-old kid, he's talking about his Pokemon cards, right? So I'm trying to have this conversation with the president of the United States offering me the vice presidential nod. And in the background, my 7-year-old's talking about Pikachu. I'm like, God, for the love of God, son, for 30 seconds, just let me have this conversation. And it's funny, the president hears him and says, put him on the phone. And then asks my 7-year-old, what do you think about this statement I'm about to put out, nominating your dad for vice president? And my son listens to it and says, oh, that sounds nice. And it's just such a surreal moment. My wife actually got a photo of me on the phone with the president. What an honor, right? I mean, that's the thing that I try to just remind myself of every single day is I didn't come from anything material, right? I did not have the advantages of a lot of people in politics, but I had an incredibly loving family. And I just feel so grateful to have this opportunity. And as I said to the convention, Megyn, that the most important thing that I think I can bring to the ticket is to never forget where I came from, to never forget the perspective of people who are struggling. Like, it's people like Mamaw who really suffer when grocery prices go up as much as they have under the Harris administration. It's people like Mom who struggled with addiction, but she's been clean for 10 years now, who really, really struggle when you have this poisonous fentanyl coming across our southern border. So I just want to remember where I came from, serve the people who made me who I am. And I think if I do that, I'll be a fine vice president and the country will be better for it. But that's my goal.
Do you think America is headed in the right direction? Unfortunately, the next generation does not understand the values that have made America the greatest nation on earth. But PragerU is helping to counter that. PragerU is a conservative nonprofit that promotes American values through educational videos that reach millions of young people every day. Right now, PragerU has an amazing opportunity. If you donate any amount, even just $1, they will send you PragerU American flag socks made in the USA as a thank you. Make sure to go to PragerU.com/socks to make your donation. You can support a great organization and express your love of American values in style while you do it. Your donation will help PragerU reach more people with their videos, which is needed now more than ever. Make a 100% tax-deductible donation at PragerU.com/socks and get your socks today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.